Salut toi, c'est du vocabulaire cette fois-ci. Et là, on est dans le livre Vocabulaire progressif 1.1 de la série progressif. So this is from the vocabulary book A1 beginner, but I think there's something in here for everybody. You know, some of the most base vocabulary is worth revisiting, even if you're quite far along your journey with your French. And then we're looking at chapter 23, La ville, la campagne. So town and countryside. I just want to point out, by the way, that la campagne is countryside. Le paysage is the landscape. Yeah, just so you know the difference between those. And they've done us a nice little picture here. So le village, la ville, la grande ville. So cité in French is not city in English. Cité, you might find when you go to a medieval town like Carcassonne or something. Cité médiévale would be sort of like some kind of walled town from before. Or cité also suggests a little bit outside of a town. So Cité Internationale de l'Europe, I think it's called, which is at Calais, is sort of like out of the town kind of shopping centre. So cité is not the same thing as city. So they just call them les grandes villes for cities, la grande ville. And there aren't so many big cities in France as there are in the UK either. Okay, so la ville. We've got a great big list here of useful vocabulary. Let's have a look at that first of all. So un quartier d'une ville is sort of like a quarter or neighborhood. Un immeuble, let's say so. So an immeuble is a building that people live in, a high-rise building. It doesn't have to be high-rise, but it's got to be several stories high. Un grand magasin would be a department store. Des boutiques, as in English. Une cathédrale, pretty obvious. Un jardin public, public garden or a park. Un musée, museum. Une rue is a street. So if you're talking about roads that are outside of the town, or you want to say road, then you say une route. And if you want to say a street, say une rue. Une avenue, so usually with trees, isn't it, along the way? Un théâtre, une poste, post office. Une mairie, every town in France has une mairie, which is where all the administrative stuff takes place. And un lycée is a secondary school. So, la vie en ville est animée et rapide. So, life in the town is animé, lively. It's quite nice, lively and rapid. En général, les gens ne se connaissent pas. There's quite a lot of assumption in this, by the way. So, let's say that towns are lively and rapid. Yes, okay. And in general, people don't know each other. So, ils ne se connaissent pas. Il y a beaucoup d'activités culturelles, de commerce et de circulation. So lots of cultural activities, shops, commerce, shops, and circulation, traffic. On distingue le centre de la ville et la banlieue. So you can distinguish the center of the town and the banlieue. So banlieue is outskirts. Could also say suburbs as well. Has a bit of a different connotation, banlieue in French to English. So suburbs, sort of like we would immediately associate with leafy suburbs, perhaps somewhere that you'd like to live. Banlieue has got connotations of sort of like the out of town, high-rise blocks, and, you know, maybe areas are a little bit défavorisées more than the sort of like the leafy view. La ville est composée de plusieurs quartiers. So towns are composed of several quarters. All right, now we're back, and now we're in the street. So la rue. So what have we got here in the street? So les gens qui font la queue. That's how you pronounce that. Don't make it queue because that's something else. So la queue. So people are queuing. Devant le cinéma. So devant, in front of the cinema. Un passage piéton is a zebra crossing or some kind of crossing there, Un feu rouge, traffic lights, doesn't have to be red. Un kiosque à journaux, little kiosk selling newspapers. Or is it there? Oh, those are those old-fashioned ones you used to see in France. Des publicités, or you can say des pubs as well. That's adverts. Un parking, car park. Un trottoir is the pavement. Un restaurant, you know. Un taxi international. Un embouteillage. Embouteillage looks like what's going on in here. A little bit of road rage there as well. An embouteillage is a traffic jam, also known as un bouchon. And both of those really refer to bottleneck, really. And they kind of come from wine, don't they? Because if you can see bouteille in there, bouteille, the word bouteille as in bottle, and bouchon means cork. So both of those mean bottlenecks or traffic jams. And then we got remarque culturelle. Connaissez-vous l'expression? L'expression familière est typiquement parisienne, métro, boulot, dodo. Have you seen this before? Métro, boulot, dodo. So what do you think that suggests? So, elle décrit la vie fatigante et routinière d'une grande ville. So it describes the tiring and routine sense of living in a big town or in a city. So boulot equals travail. So boulot means work. Dodo is a childish way of saying sleep. So if people say métro, boulot, dodo, it's the same old routine, same old thing, different day, same problems, you know, that sort of thing. So it's basically saying métro, work, sleep, nothing in between. Bonjour Lucien, ça va? Bof, ça va, rien de spécial, métro, boulot, dodo. So it's a complaint, really. If you've got nothing, if at the beginning of a class, when I say quoi de neuf, and you haven't got anything to say, you could say rien, pas grand chose, or if you wanted to say, you could start off with a bar, bof, métro, boulot, dodo, and I get the idea that nothing special going on. Okay, la banlieue. All right, let's see what they say about la banlieue. So, la banlieue désigne les villes situées à la périphérie des grandes villes. This word périphérie is used quite a lot, and when you have sort of like ring roads that go around cities and towns, they're called les périphériques, and they sort of like tend to be in les banlieues. So banlieue designates the town situated on the periphery of cities. Villeurbanne est une petite ville dans la banlieue de Lyon. So, for example, Villeurbanne is a little town in the suburbs of Lyon. I would have argued that perhaps that was still part of Lyon. I actually used to live in Villeurbanne, and that's where I taught English for a few years. But yeah, it is sort of like on the edge. It's on the edge. Nous prenons un train de banlieue pour rentrer chez nous. So you can get a suburban train to get back to where you're going. Certaines villes de banlieue sont plutôt bourgeoises, assez riches, avec de belles maisons et des espaces verts. So some towns in the suburbs are rather middle class, quite rich, with beautiful houses and green spaces. D'autres, au contraire, sont difficiles ou sensibles, assez pauvres. So others, on the other hand, are difficult, sensitive, and quite poor. Défavorisés. Ces communes ont généralement de grands ensembles de HLM, habitations à louer modérées, des logements sociaux. So these communities generally have sort of like what these are called a HLM, and these will be those really high-rise buildings that you see on the edges of cities. And what it means is housing with a moderated rent, so controlled rents, basically, or social housing. Lots of problems, lots of films made about that as well. Those areas are also referred to as la cité as well. So be careful about the use of that word because it doesn't have the same meaning as it does in English. Beaucoup de familles habitent en banlieue pour avoir plus d'espace. En général, les maisons et les appartements sont moins chers que dans le centre des villes. So lots of families live in the banlieue because they have more space. In general, houses and apartments are cheaper than in the center of the town. Okay, le village. In the village, we have a château. So, il y a des milliers de villages en France. There are thousands of villages in France. Ils sont souvent jolis et anciens. Quite pretty. They're often pretty and old. Joli means pretty. La vie dans un village est en général calme et assez lente. So life is usually calm and quite slow. Les gens se connaissent, se disent bonjour dans la rue. People tend to know each other and say hello to each other in the street. And then we've got some typical things that you might find in a village. So I doubt this still is the case, but we've got une cabine téléphonique, des chiens, une place. You get une place anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're a village, a small town, a city, the places are everywhere. And they're sort of like these big, large squares, and they tend to have cafes around them. And sometimes, that's where you'd find the mairie, things like that. So place is quite important, isn't it, in French town planning. Une petite rue, a little street. Une épicerie, grocer, un café. Une maison avec un jardin, so a house with a garden. Une école, a school, une église, church. Un cimetière, cemetery. Une route qui sort du village. So notice that we'd say rue when we're in the town, and route for road, so a road that's leaving the village. Un château, castle, voilà. So village life. La campagne. What have we got here? So we've got all these different animals named here. So Maxime habite à la campagne. So à la campagne, not dans la campagne, à la campagne. Il a une ferme. He's got a farm. Il est fermier. He's a farmer. Il élève. So bringing up children or animals is this verb, élever. So des poules, des poulets, des canards, des vaches, des cochons, des moutons et des chèvres. Maxime a aussi un chien, un chat, un chat. Il aime beaucoup les animaux. Okay, so we've got poule, chickens. Now, for me, poulet is chicken when it's cooked. So I don't know why we're getting that one. I don't see the difference between those two. Anyhow, canard, duck, vache, cows. You probably know all of these anyway, don't you? Cochon, pigs, mouton, sheep, chèvre, goats. And he's also got a dog and a cat. He likes animals. Joseph est agriculteur. So there's a difference between, so he's a fermier, il élève, so he's bringing up animals. He's a livestock farmer. And this farmer is an arable farmer. So we call him agriculteur. And notice when you talk about what you do and what somebody does, you don't have an un or an une in there. So je suis professeur, for example. Je suis pas une professeur, je suis professeur. So Joseph est agriculteur. Pour aller dans le champ avec son tracteur, Joseph monte sur une colline et passe à côté d'un petit lac. So to go into a field, that's field, with his tractor, Joseph climbs a hill and passes next to a little lake. Il traverse le pont qui passe sur la rivière. He crosses the bridge that crosses the river. Joseph aime regarder les oiseaux dans le ciel. Il aime beaucoup la nature. So he likes to watch the birds in the sky. He likes nature a lot. And then we have derrière la ferme, so behind the farm, il y a une forêt. There's a forest. So notice it's une forêt. And if you want to say wood, say un bois. You can just notice those side by side. Un bois, une forêt. So we've got a tree here. So un arbre, une branche, that's pretty obvious. Une feuille is a leaf. Des fleurs, flowers. De l'herbe, grass. And des champignons, mushrooms. And then just to finish, la protection de l'environnement. Les pays d'Europe cherchent à protéger l'environnement. So countries in Europe are trying, chercher can mean trying in this case, are trying to protect the environment. On pratique le recyclage égale on recycle le verre et le papier. So practice recycling glass and paper. On prend les transports en commun, take public transport, les transports en commun. bus, métro, tramway, train. Notice that a tram is called un tramway. Ou le vélo, bike. On essaie d'économiser l'énergie, le pétrole, l'eau, l'électricité. So try to economize energy by oil, water, electricity. On utilise de plus en plus des ampoules à basse consommation. So for example, using light bulbs, les ampoules invented by Ampère, apparently, les ampoules which use low consummation. Excellent. Hope you found some useful things in there. Thanks very much for coming along and hope to see you again soon. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Au revoir. Au revoir.